lot of concepts to go through today with one specific intent: making things practically and therapeutically useful. Okay? I love talking about science and spirituality. It's not very useful if we can't apply it. In light of recent events, specifically more shootings that we've experienced, I wanted to talk about something in specific: how we can live in a world where we go through chaotic, horrible things and not use the word evil and actually help. Because politics is going to show us again and again and again and again and again it's man's laws, and man's laws aren't going to have solutions, okay? It's not going to work. We should try, okay? There's nothing wrong with trying things. But it's always going to be limited somewhere, right? If there's what people call evil in the world, evil people are always going to find ways to hurt other people, okay? But I had a 13-year-old girl in here today, and she said, well, I know what the problem is. Hurt people hurt people. And of course that's true. Of course. And so what do we want to do? We want to work on that. And so I'm going to go through, I mean, we could, again, do whatever laws you want. We should continue to try things, see what works. But getting rid of evil, and again, I'm doing this because I don't like to even think of it as evil. There's light and there's absence of light. There's love and there's absence of love, okay? All's evil is the absence of love, just like cold is the absence of heat. In order to get rid of evil, we must add love. But we can't add human love because we argue about that all the time. What's the loving thing to do, okay? And that's human debate stuff. It won't work. We're going to find the answers in science and spirituality. And so a heavy dose of that, recycling some stuff. I've had a hard time getting rid of some things I wrote recently. And I like this particular drawing because it's to the point. So recycling that. I probably also am going to erase this line by Madame de Stael a couple centuries ago. To understand everything is to forgive everything. So the continued pursuit of forgiveness and actually helping difficult situations in this country by adding a certain type of energy, that's how we're going to heal. It's how we heal ourselves and how we help others. And it's how we can ultimately forgive on a big level hideous acts. It's also what sola fide is about, the Christian doctrine of through faith alone, okay? Because that's all we need. I'm about to talk about chapter 20 in the book New Eyes, and how that there's a certain level of a human awareness and human intelligence that we can't be using the ego mind. We're limited. We're going to talk about that in a second, comparing a scientist who talked about that with some Buddhist concepts. But first I want to share a vision that I had in a meditation state. If you've not meditated, I highly recommend you practice it. I've had more than a few visions. I don't know what else to call it, but they're like dreamlike states in which I experience something that is like really profoundly real. It feels real, but I'm sort of aware that it's like a dream. And so I just call them visions. But this particular vision, I was in a helicopter and we were flying over, I don't know who was with me, but we were flying over the Red Sea that was being parted, and Moses and all the people were crossing it. And I got to see this from above. That was pretty cool. And then we swept by in the helicopter past this mountain. And on this mountain were a bunch of people running up to the mountain. And at the top of the mountain is a little bit more like a volcano. There was steam coming out of it. And as I came over the top of the Red Sea that was being parted, we ended up diving down to the bottom of the mountain, and I was pushed out. Then I looked up, and all the people on the mountain were naked. And it wasn't at all sexual. It was just a bunch of people in the raw that were climbing up this mountain. And I watched, and I started to climb after them. And we climbed, people were climbing up, and they were diving into this mountain and where the steam was coming out of. And all I could feel in this vision was a pull, like, I want to get there. I wasn't quite sure what it was. And, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but I knew I needed to get there, okay? And as we were climbing closer and closer to the top of the mountain, I started to get more and more excited, and guess what? I woke up, or the meditation ended, and I popped out of it, and that was it. But I came out of it with the crystal clear awareness of what it was. What was inside of that was pure consciousness. It was like divinity. And that's why people were trying to dive in there. And why was everyone naked? Because they were free from their ego state, right? No clinging, no attachments. They were free. And so they were diving into that, right? And I didn't quite get there. I'm still here, so I'm not quite there. But I knew it was true. And there was a certain desire that I had. I remember the Dalai Lama once said, we must desire desirelessness, right? So there's a certain desire to get to this place where there's no desire. And it was very profound, and it was as real as talking to you right now was real to me, very clear. Well, this links to sola fide for me because, can I prove that to anyone? What experience I had. It was just a dream, just a vision. But it was real, and it felt real. Sure felt like truth, and yet can't prove it. This is also Hebrews 11:1, which is Paul, I believe, saying that faith is the evidence of things unseen. I just described you a vision. Does it mean anything to you? If it does, great. Feels like a certain truth for you, perhaps. Maybe you've had something similar. But if it doesn't, well, okay, fine. You find your own way. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but whatever, you're on your own path. It's through faith alone we are saved, ultimately, by realizing there's a gear that we're missing that we can't use with the ego mind. And here's where I'm going to compare the Buddhist concept of Dzogchen, which is really two words combined together to mean the great perfection or the great end. The Zog is the ending and Chen is great, something like that. And these words are mashed together because all of us are headed towards this. We're headed towards a great ending. In my vision, it was all of us diving into this, volcanic mountain of pure consciousness, okay? Well, Dzogchen is something the Buddha says must be experienced. And it's something we are all going to experience. You're going to experience it. What you can't do is chase it down. You can't earn it, right? There's nothing specifically you can do to get it either. But you will experience it. You won't get out of this place until you do. Well, what is that? Well, it is the end. That's an important thing, okay? The end game. This is where we're headed. We're all headed. Good luck finding that physically. Like Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven doesn't come with observation, okay? Now, Kurt Gödel was a mathematician in Einstein's day, about 30 years younger than Einstein. In New Eyes, I have a picture of Kurt Gödel and Albert Einstein taking a walk. And Gödel was so brilliant that Albert Einstein sought him out. If Albert Einstein texts you and says, I want to meet you, you must be a pretty cool dude, right? And he looked up Kurt Gödel, he wanted to talk to him, and they ended up becoming friends. They philosophized a lot together towards the end of Albert's life. And what was Kurt Gödel famous for? Something called the Incompleteness Theorem. Brilliant mathematician. I'm not going to even try to touch the math because I could barely understand it at all. But I understand the point. The Incompleteness Theorem of Kurt Gödel's is this: that there are truths that exist in this world that can't be proven. As much as we're trying to prove things, and scientists are all about proving things, there are some truths, according to a scientist, that can't be proven. And in order to be proven, he says, the second part of the Incompleteness Theorem, is you need an external observer to do so. Once again, this is where I use the Pac-Man analogy. Pac-Man doesn't understand everything that's going on around him. He's trying to figure out what's happening inside his video game. That's the best that he can do. He doesn't know he's being controlled by someone sitting on the couch. He doesn't understand the cartridge and the joystick and all the Atari features, He doesn't get that. He's not capable of. You need an outside observer, the dude sitting on the couch playing the game, to understand all of it. Okay, well, Kurt Gödel's Incompleteness Theorem says there's stuff that's true that we live in a world there's some truths that can't be proven, but if we were to prove them, we have to be outside the system. Well, guess what's inside the system? Our bodies, okay? And our ego mind, and the physical mind that says this is what the world is like, and you should do this, and you should do that. And this is how we're going to solve our problems with all these human laws, right? Ain't going to happen. But there is an external observer. It's called your spirit. It's inside and outside the system, and it can be activated. It's also known as awakening, right? Or enlightenment. And if you use that part of your mind, guess what? You can see both inside and outside the system. And then you realize what's true. Oh, I care about what happens, and we got to have some laws. It makes sense, but they better be balanced. But you can swing both ways with them in the physical world. That's duality. The truth is, when you look from outside the system, from the spiritual place, you see what Rumi says. Rumi happens to be a very excellent Muslim poet from 1,000 years ago. I highly recommend people read Rumi. Rumi says, I searched for God and I found myself. I searched for myself and I found God. Well, there you go. That's Dzogchen. Okay? Who is it that we're looking for? Some dude in the sky? Well, good luck with that. That's more physical system stuff. Okay? But if you realize that a little piece of God was placed inside of every one of us, and again, God, we don't have to argue about that. That's not a God inside the system. God, I've had Buddhists get mad at me because I say the word God. I'm like, well, it depends on what you mean by the word God, doesn't it? Okay? If God is what Krishna says, the highest self within the self, and each one of us had a little bit of that placed inside of us, then each one of us has to find that thing and then spread the light to the other person. That's the only way to improve behaviors. Okay, it's the only way to improve consciousness and to improve mental health, by elevating ourselves spiritually. Once again, R.I.P. Elvis. If it were just about money and good looks and fame and fortune, Elvis would be 82 or whatever and still alive, right? But it's not about that. Just because we're rich or things are good for you physically doesn't mean you're cured in any way. In fact, some of the most miserable people in the world are millionaires, right? Happens a lot. And so the only way to understand all this is to realize what Rumi says. Go looking for God, you're going to find yourself. Is it going to be this? I sure hope not, right? I'm going to find that spiritual part of myself that knows that I am God and you are gods. Or like Jesus says, know ye not, ye are gods. It's the same thing that Buddha's talking about with Dzogchen. Same thing. No reason for Christians and Buddhists to argue about that, because that's what God is, the highest self within the self. Now we pulled in Christianity and Islam right there, right? Anybody want to argue about that? They're all saying the same thing. Here's where I'll use this drawing from last lecture or so. That's the point, if you will, the 0-point field, the black hole at the center perhaps of our universe. Is the little spot that we all came from the Big Bang, in which God was present, and we all come from that, and some people are close to it, and some people are really far away. And the bad things that we do, the horrible things that we do, come from being far away from that truth. Because the further you are away from that truth, the less light that you have. Which is why I have bright light coming off this person and no light coming off that person. This doesn't make us good or bad. It makes us light or not light. We're all light, but we're just not aware of it. It's that awareness that makes the difference. Okay? Why do people do horrible things? It's because of their lack of light. How do we change this? Through man's laws or through lucidity? Krishna has a great teaching from the Bhagavad Gita talking about dark inertia, passion, and lucidity. Simply put, dark inertia is when we are bad people who are hurting other people. Then we have passion, which is good people, but it's still people. And those good people tell the bad people they're bad. Don't eat off that tree, it says in Genesis. Where are we going to get from a bunch of sanctimonious people telling a bunch of other people they're bad and their laws are stupid and you're wrong for this and that and you should do this and that? And I know how to fix things, right? Well, it doesn't happen in the flesh. It won't happen in the flesh. We've been trying that game for a long time. Buddha's last words, strive for your own liberation with diligence, means we can come to a place where we know what the truth is, because that's the best we can do. And then what? What does Jesus say? Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love another as oneself. Why would that matter? Because if I'm doing it and I love you as myself and I've got the light in me, I can spread the light to you. That's called entanglement. Thank you, Albert Einstein and friends. And if you've got it and you're working on it and you're the light and you're going to be that around me, you're going to help me. And you'll add light to me. Now, I like to think of this from a lucid point of view, because it ain't about behaviors and laws. We got plenty of laws. People break them all the time. Laws don't fix nothing. We tried to get rid of booze back in the 20s and 30s. What happened? Didn't work, did it? Okay, you could take away all weapons and people are still going to come up with ways to hurt people. Okay? We should have some laws. Humans should have laws for sure, but we're not going to solve stuff that way. Here's how I want you to think of it. We talked a couple weeks ago again about clearing a certain bar. And mental health is when we don't clear a bar that was set up for us. Well, we've got a human bar. And all of us have a little piece of God placed inside of us from the beginning, or a piece of spirit, or piece of the Tao. Whatever you want to think of. Pure vibration, pure light. You were born with it. You couldn't not be connected to it. That's why everyone's attached to it. And your job is to do one thing, nurture it so that it grows. That's your job. And then what does Jesus say? Love another as oneself. Help others get it. And so what does it look like? I've got 4 different people on a high bar, right? Doing the high jump. The person that's not filled with light at all does the horrible things. If you're so disconnected from truth or God or light or love or whatever, you feel horrible. That person does horrible things. That's hurt people. And then you got people doing mediocre things because they got a little bit of light in them, right? You do some good things, you do some bad things, right? And that person would benefit by adding more light. Because if you got a pretty decent amount of light, you're getting close to clearing, you're still making mistakes, you hit your bar in the head occasionally. It seems like we can't be perfect. In the flesh we can't be. And if we keep trying to improve in the flesh, not going to happen. There's no perfect law. But clearing the bar, to clear the bar, I got this guy yelling yay up here, because this one's completely filled with the light. People that are filled with the light of the Holy Spirit of the Tao tend not to kill people. Okay? The more love you feel, and I'm talking spirit type love, the more you know that we're all teammates, the more you know that man's laws ain't going to fix anything, but the spiritual laws will. The more you know that, that's lucidity. The more light that you have inside your heart, the more you just want others to feel that. You ain't going to kill anybody. Now, weave that in with man's laws, we got a system. Okay? We're going to be able to work with people at different levels. We need to have physical laws. They need to be in place. But why is America so stuck? Because we're not clearing this bar. It's a spiritual bar. We're not going to be able to have Congress legislate anything. In order to enact the laws that we have to make them work, we actually have to add the spiritual laws to them. And that means to stop sitting in judgment of each other and calling each other names. Both sides do it. And that if you're going to debate laws, you know what we should do out of respect and reverence and love and light. Make your suggestions, but do it with a high vibration, a high energy. Up here, now you're going to be able to feed that to everyone else. And there's our vision, or at least my vision, of diving into that volcano or that mountain and experiencing that pure consciousness. Everybody wants to do it. We're all craving it. Once again, that's Morpheus in the Matrix. It's a splinter in our mind driving us mad. What's driving us mad? We're all desiring this, whether we know it or not. Rumi says, hey, go looking for God, you're going to find yourself. Your true self, right? Not some dude in a throne. Go looking for yourself. The more you dig into all your layers, you're going to go, oh, that's God. There's your answer. That's Dzogchen. That's the end game, right? That's the person that's cleared the bar. Yay. And then when you've done that, you're filled with the light. You're not killing people. You're probably going the speed limit too. All your behavior's improved. Your relationships improve for the most part. You can deal with all types of adversity, and if someone nails you to a cross, you're not going to like it, but you're going to get through it. And you'll understand what you can do is constantly teach people what light and love is all about. Through what? Forgiveness. That's the key, and it's the therapeutic application of this. Someone else has hurt you, or someone that you don't even know in some other state has done something horrific. To condemn them, to an eternal hell kind of thing, first of all, it doesn't exist. Second of all, to do that is not to add light, but to know that that person has to learn how to clear that bar. What if you could only get this high yourself because you've done a horrible thing? I've worked with murderers in prison. They have to go through a guilt phase, right? And they have to go through a shame phase. And when they do, it hurts and it burns. But then they continue to elevate, and the more they elevate and they get closer to that bar of the realization of the true self, way up there, guess what? They're killing less. If at all, crimes go way down up there, obviously. Okay? And so what do we have to add? Go ahead and do our laws. Not a problem. But we got to add the light to it. Why does Buddha say strive for your own liberation? Because if I don't have it, I can't help you. And if you don't have it, you can't help me. What good does it do for congressmen to yell at each other as they do? Nothing. We're not really getting anywhere. Just more aggravated, more stressed. But if we engage with each other on a spiritual level, realize that what God is a gift given to each one of us, sola fide, it's through faith alone, because there's no proof of this. That's the point of the Kurt Gödel stuff. You have to experience it for yourself. That's Ram Dass. For those who have had the experience, no explanation is necessary. For those who haven't had the experience, no explanation is possible. Right? That's faith alone, that's sola fide, and it's also Kurt Gödel. It's incomplete. This physical world is incomplete. Science can't prove it. We have to have the experience for ourselves. And when you have that light experience, and then you spread it to others and they spread it back, when two or more are gathered in my name, I'm there with them, we enhance the Christ, its resonance. And then you go looking for more of it the next day. Your behaviors will definitely improve, okay? We're going to have way less crime as a result when people work on that. And then we can work on influencing others who didn't quite have it so good as us, perhaps, when they were younger. What a horrific thing that happened down there. And there's no justification for it other than the lack of light. We have to add light to that situation. And we have to add light throughout the world so future shooters like that are way less likely to pull off that type of horrific activity. Right? It's adding love. Can we still work on the laws? Of course we can. Never do I say humans shouldn't be doing human things. Okay, of course, try that. It's just incomplete. We can't complete a perfect law. But if we work on the laws and then we add the spiritual laws, and at the heart of that is forgiveness, which is just meaning adding light to a situation, forgiving. If that's what we do, we might be able to make some progress.